from Black Rock to Brooklawn and all over Greater Bridgeport. You're listening to Melissa in the Morning on Southern Connecticut's news and information leader, WICC 600 AM and 107.3 FM.
So I told you about my visit to UB maybe about a month and a half, 2 months ago, let's say. And UB holds something very special in my heart because that's where my mom went for her nursing degree. And UB has changed a lot, though, over the years. It's pretty incredible. But they've also gone through some challenges, quite frankly. The school saw decreasing enrollment for about 5 years consecutively until the fall of 2022. And the year before that, they really looked at their senior leadership in their board of trustees. And they have now seen, which is fantastic, a 34% increase in enrollment over just the last 2 academic years. Now, I've met the president because I had the opportunity to do so, and I don't know if she'll take a lot of the credit for it, but I do think that you had an awful lot to do with some of that success. Danielle Wilken is in studio with us, and I'm so glad to have you on the show, Danielle. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you here, and I was so glad. Thank you again for giving us so much time when we came to campus. I've gone to plenty of college campuses. I've never met a president who literally just I don't know what was going on with your schedule, but you just gave us oodles amount of time and answered my insane amounts of questions, and you were just so gracious. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I love talking about University of Bridgeport and all the things that our students are doing, our faculty and staff are doing. So happy to have that conversation anytime and make space for it.
Well, we appreciated it for sure here at WICC. Now, on the show recently, we've been doing a lot with UB because it really has changed so much. Talk to us about you entering into the UB realm and some of the things you noticed and what has changed since your leadership.
So I started at UB about 2.5 years ago, and as you said, it had just gone through a transaction. It had formed a partnership with Goodwin University, and spent a lot of time initially just getting to know the university, getting to know the people. And I would say the biggest thing we've done is opened up lines of communication between the administration, the staff, the students. There's a lot of great ideas, as you've talked about on the show, that are happening at UB, and it was really about just opening that up and creating avenues and possibilities for people to implement some of the great ideas that they've had. And that's really been one of the big successes that we've had in terms of, you had the Purple Knights Coffee Company, which was a student-led company that we created for our students that allowed them to implement a strategic plan, a marketing plan, and open a company. Our students have participated in the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Last year, they came in second place out of 4,000 universities around the world. This year, they came in 11th place. And it's really just about letting the faculty and staff loose and saying, what great ideas do you have and what support do you need and how can we implement those ideas?
And I hate to use this term, but only for people to understand it. When you and I met that first time, Danielle, you had talked about what I thought was a very interesting way of having students really engage with faculty. I mean, the higher up faculty. And it reminded me a lot of like a Shark Tank. Can you explain something? Because I love this approach. And I don't know how many colleges would do something like this, but even workplaces to have your younger folks coming in to do sort of the model you're talking about. I just thought it was fascinating, and it's already really benefited you.
Sure. So when I was going through the transaction, originally I was working at Goodwin University as we were creating this partnership with University of Bridgeport. And I was hearing, as I was meeting with people, all these great ideas that they had, and I was sort of filing them away as we were just, working through the mechanics. And when I got to UB, I started scheduling meetings with people who had met with me over time and said, oh, I have this great idea. I wish I could do this. Oh, I wish I could do that. And so I started.
What do I do with all this?
What do I do with all this? Right. And so I started meeting with people, and there were really great ideas. So one of the vice presidents said we should have office co-sharing space on campus. We should have companies coming in and sharing space on campus and creating internships for our students. And so that was an example of an early idea that came through. And so we have Community Day. And we presented a series of these ideas at Community Day to our whole campus community. And somebody nicknamed it UB Shark Tank. But really the purpose of what it is Anybody can get on the calendar. You don't have to be a senior leader. You can, just be somebody at the university who has a great idea, and you get to present to the entire senior cabinet. So we schedule 2 hours once a month for these sessions.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's terrifying. Can I just be honest? That's scary.
Yeah, it is. And I tell people when they come in, it's a little bit rough. It is, when you see Shark Tank on TV, that's not exactly the model, but I tell people out the gate that my job is to sort of beat up your idea, because if the university is going to invest time, money, energy in something, we need to make sure that we're getting something back that serves our students. So the idea is that you can present any idea that generates revenue, reduce costs, or positively impact student experiences. And we've had everything from Purple Nights Coffee to office co-sharing space. We had some faculty come through with a new program idea. Our students, our accounting club, recently served as the fiduciary for the Seaside Trail Park grant. That grant was sort of wandering around. It needed somebody who would manage the funds. And our accounting club ended up serving as the fiduciary, which was a great real-life learning experience for our students. The idea to do that came through UB Shark Tank. And so it really is the people who come in. It's a variety of individuals. We actually had Shark Tank this week. I had a faculty member talking about UB becoming certified financial analyst CFA, school. And so it's the ideas that come through are pretty diverse.
Wow.
But it's such a great way to open up access to the senior team. And for me, it gives me such an opportunity to engage with people and talk about ideas that otherwise just sort of lay dormant and don't have a way to come to light.
Well, and it's what I also love about it. We have the president of the University of Bridgeport here, Danielle Wilken, is here, and this idea of opening up really ideas for the campus for either, like you said, revenue building or cutting down on costs in some way, or building some kind of better experience for the students on campus. I think we can never have enough great ideas, because our minds can only think of what would make sense in our own realm. And even if you have a team of 12 people, you're making up an entire campus of thousands of people. So there's just no way even that group would be able to speak for everybody. So I love this concept of, wow, like I didn't even think of that, or I didn't even know we could do something like that. I wish more places did that.
So I will tell you, at my first town hall at UB, I said the senior team alone can't solve or move the university forward alone. One of the most important and hardest lessons of my professional career happened when I was at Goodwin. I got into a riff with the faculty senate there. I had taken on the vice president for academic affairs role, and I was busy making policies and procedures that I thought were fabulous and really super helpful, and I forgot to check in with the faculty. And I had a good relationship with them, but they got frustrated because I was missing something. I was only seeing something from my lens, my view. And when you're on the senior team, your lens is about 30,000 feet, and you can see far ahead, but you can't always see the problems on the ground. And the ground problems that at your level might look like a small rock is actually a giant boulder, but you just don't have that perspective. And so I had this run-in with faculty, and we created a new structure by which we were creating policies and procedures, and it was a much more iterative, engaged process. And it was one of the most powerful lessons of my life as a leader, that I have a view, but it's not a full view. And in order to be a successful organization, you need that holistic view of multiple layers in order to really solve a problem. And so, I would say that approach that I took to UB was really a life lesson as a leader, that I have a view, and it's an important view, but ultimately I need multiple layers of view to make the best decisions. And I did find it good when once we shifted that dynamic with faculty. We were making incredible decisions, and our relationship as a leadership team was with faculty and staff was so much better. And so really have tried to apply that. And I think it's a mistake leaders make routinely, is that everybody expects you to have the answers, and when you're vulnerable enough to say, I don't have all the answers, but I think if we come together, ultimately I need to be responsible for those decisions. And that's, a conversation too, that ultimately I will make the decision. But getting those points of view is super helpful.
The fact that you took a step back and said, okay, maybe I don't have all the answers. And not only did you rectify the situation you were in at your former job, but you then took that lesson and you made it sort of your way of doing things at UB right now. I don't think most leaders in any sector are doing that. Like I look at politicians, I look at, CEOs sometimes, and this idea of I've got all the answers, or this is the way it's always worked. If it's not broken, don't fix it, doesn't work for the newest generation of students or workers. So I love the fact that you're doing that at UB.
So, another, I guess, sidebar conversation is I've spent a lot of my professional career thinking about the students that we serve. And so I was always gearing up towards being the chief academic officer. And the student population that I serve it has always been a very diverse population. It's been veterans, it's been minority students, it's been first-gen students, it's students who have an advanced degree who decided that they're going to go back to school and pursue another profession. The classrooms that I taught in and continue to oversee at University of Bridgeport have been incredibly diverse students. And so I was always studying how do you support different student populations of students. And I discovered while I was in my graduate doctoral program a universal design for learning, which is a way in which you teach. And it's really about how do you remove barriers to learning, how do you remove barriers to education, but it forces you to become a very reflective practitioner in the classroom and to think about what are you doing that might serve or not serve your students. And I think that has caused me to then become a reflective mom. It's caused me to become a reflective leader. And so that question of what challenges am I actually creating versus how do I make things better? And so I think I've had a very fortuitous professional career where I've had opportunities to make mistakes, to learn from them, but also have been immersed in this theory around how do you remove barriers. And while it was really focused on education and classroom experience, it has gracefully spilled over into other aspects of my life.
Well, thank you for taking that approach. Because like I said, you could have totally taken the approach of, I know better, I'm in a higher up position, and I'm just going to trudge forward. So thank you for not doing that.
Yeah, that works in the short term. It never works in the long term.
Well, tell that to many other people who are still doing that. But I think that's really extraordinary. And again, we have the president of the University of Bridgeport here, Danielle Wilken. What do you think the future of higher ed looks like?
I think the future of higher ed is going to go through a series of changes. I think it's gotten a little bit saturated. It's gotten expensive. And I think, institutions are going to have to find ways to save money so that they can save money for their students. They're going to have to control costs. And I think we need to recognize that a full degree is not always the right answer for every student. And so we need to create on-ramps and off-ramps for students that make sense. So I think creating situations where a student can pursue a collegiate certificate, whether it's welding, whether it's CNC, whether it's something in another profession on the health sciences side, that allows students to get out into the field and start working, allow those credits to roll over into a degree. So often we assume that something that would be considered the trades is not valuable learning, and I think we need to stop having students spend money, spend time in those spaces and not recognize that as valuable learning. And I also think you'll see compression within the industry of schools partnering, of schools joining together, maybe becoming one institution, maybe becoming partner institutions. We just need to be more efficient, lean, and we need to be focused on the student experience and the classroom. A lot of the work that I've done over the last decade is really around professional development for faculty. Everybody assumes because they've gone through the K-12 experience that in which teachers are taught to teach, are taught to be good in the classroom. Higher education has always taken the perspective that if you're a subject matter expert who has a terminal degree or a doctoral degree, somehow you're just going to magically get that information from your head to the students in the classroom, and that's not the case. Not everybody has that natural skill set. So I have spent a lifetime of building, supporting professional development for faculty in the classroom, and I started that at Goodwin and have continued that at University of Bridgeport. Around that UDL work of how do you train faculty to be good in the classroom, how to make good assessments, really focus on what is the goal of learning and not some of the extraneous stuff. You know, as you said earlier, this is what I experienced, so that must be the right way to do it. That's not always the case, and we really need to think about how does the brain work and how do we get the best out of our students.
Right. I mean, and that's it. The thing is, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But that doesn't always really work. Like, I haven't been in a college classroom for 15 years, but when I sit in on these seminars and I talk about broadcasting with the current, students that are at my alma mater, most of the time they're asking questions that I never even cared about or thought was even relevant. But I also was growing up where Facebook was just invented when I was a sophomore in college. So it's different and it's constantly changing. So I can't imagine how professors have to constantly adjust, especially if they've been at institutions for 10, 15, 20 years. So I love that that's also a focus. And I hope that you're right, that that's what the future holds for higher ed. I do know we're running out of time, Danielle, but I wanted you to really quickly highlight some of the neat things that are going on campus at UB, if you don't mind. Like, we've got clinics and we've got the School of Ed internships. Could you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. So we do have a health clinic on campus. So we offer Chinese medicine, acupuncture, chiropractic, dental hygiene. So anybody in the community can come onto campus and get care at a very, very reasonable cost. These clinics allow our students to practice their skills and serve the community, which is a wonderful resource for everybody. Our School of Education has an internship program where students can serve as substitutes in a school building over the course of a full year, and they get financial support for doing that, which allows them to get their master's in education at a much reduced cost. So really creating opportunities for our students to engage in practical, important learning while supporting them in school.
Yeah, you've got your innovation center where people are launching businesses there, not to mention their athletics are kind of crushing it this year. Just going to throw that out there.
They are. They're champions. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
And the Innovation Center has launched a number of businesses which we're so proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to be proud of with the University of Bridgeport. What is your website, Danielle, actually, if people want to learn more or they want to get connected to UB?
Just type in University of Bridgeport and it'll bring you right to our website.
That's amazing. Well, I want to thank you, Danielle Wilken, for being the president of UB, for bringing these ideas to campus and for changing things really a couple years ago when you came on. I know she won't take all the credit for it, but you do have a lot to do with it. You do. You do have a great team, but big leaders. It's a really important role that you play, and I thank you for playing it the way that you do and for coming on WICC.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a treat.